The courtroom was like a scene out of a blockbuster movie, packed, tense, and silent. You could literally feel the weight in the air, like everyone knew something explosive was about to drop. And at the center of it all, none other than Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, Mr. Billion-Dollar Empire himself. The man who built an untouchable brand, stacked Grammy after Grammy, and married Beyoncé, the queen herself. He had it all, or at least, that's what the world thought. But on this day, none of those achievements mattered. Not the money, not the fame, not the awards. Because in that room, Jay-Z wasn't a mogul. He wasn't the global superstar. He was just a man who might lose the one thing he couldn't buy back, his legacy. And sitting across from him, Rymir, not a celebrity, not a flashy socialite, just a man with a broken heart and a simple plea: the truth. For over a decade, he's been saying the same words. Words most people laughed off, ignored, or twisted into lies. Jay-Z is my father. That was it. He wasn't chasing clout, he wasn't begging for money, and he wasn't trying to cash in on a headline. All he wanted was the truth. Just one thing: a DNA test. Proof. A sliver of honesty in a life where silence and denial had been his reality. But year after year, court after court, Rymir was brushed aside like he didn't matter. He was painted as a liar, a scammer, someone who just wanted to feed off Jay-Z's success. The media rolled their eyes, the court slammed the door shut, and Jay-Z himself? He didn't even acknowledge him. It was like shouting into a void. But here's the twist. Rymir never stopped. He never asked for money, never begged for fame. He just kept demanding what was rightfully his, the truth about where he came from. And finally, after years of being gaslit, ignored, and buried under the weight of Jay-Z's powerful machine, it happened. The DNA test was done. The results were in. And Jay-Z, the man who had spent years dodging this very question, was now sitting just a few feet away from the answer he had tried so hard to bury. The air in that courtroom was suffocating. Reporters weren't even breathing. The cameras were locked in like hawks waiting to pounce. Even Jay-Z's usually cool and confident legal team looked rattled. Everyone knew something was about to break. And then the judge leaned forward. He held the document that everyone had been waiting to see for years. With a steady voice, he read the results aloud. The DNA matched. Boom! That one line hit the courtroom like a bomb detonating. The truth that had been denied for over a decade was finally confirmed. Jay-Z was the father. Jay-Z's jaw locked tight. His eyes darted to the floor like he was trying to escape the reality in front of him. He muttered something under his breath, words too low for anyone to catch. And then, for the first time in years, the man who always prided himself on control, on composure, on power, snapped. His fists slammed against the table with a thunderous crack. His voice, usually smooth and calculated, cracked as he barked something nobody could quite make out. His team jumped in immediately, surrounding him, whispering frantically, trying to calm him down. But it was too late. The cameras had already captured everything. And you know what that means? The internet was going to have a field day. Meanwhile, across the room, Rymir sat still. Completely still. No gloating, no smile. Just this haunting calm, the kind of silence that comes when you finally get the answer you always knew, but waited too long to hear. This wasn't a victory for him. It was confirmation of years of pain, years of being mocked, years of being told he was lying, years of being silenced. The truth was here now, but it was too late to heal the wounds it left behind. And then, outside the courtroom, the world exploded. Social media lit up like fireworks. Hashtags were trending within minutes. Some fans defended Jay-Z, swearing he had his reasons, that he was just trying to protect himself, his empire, his family. But others, they went for his neck, dragging him for denying his own son, questioning his integrity, and exposing him as a man terrified of the truth. Memes popped up left and right, looping his courtroom breakdown on repeat. But here's the thing. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This wasn't just a juicy headline for clicks. This was real life. This was a son finally proving what he'd been saying his whole life, and a father forced to face the truth he had spent years running from. Inside that courtroom, Jay-Z no longer looked like the untouchable mogul he had carefully crafted himself to be. He looked like a man, broken, cornered, cracked open by a truth he could no longer deny. His hands trembled as he wiped his face. This wasn't just business. This wasn't a PR crisis. This was blood. This was family. And in that moment, all the power, all the fame, all the billions meant absolutely nothing. His lawyers scrambled, flipping through papers, whispering strategies, trying desperately to regain control. They wanted a recess. They wanted time. They wanted to spin this mess into something they could manage. But Jay-Z wasn't listening. His eyes were glued to the floor, locked in his own private war between denial and acceptance. And every single camera in the room was pointed right at him. Across from him, Rymir still hadn't moved. His face was a storm of emotions: anger, sadness, relief, confusion. He had always dreamed this moment would bring him closure, that hearing the truth in black and white would finally let him breathe. But instead, it just opened another wound. Why did it take so long? Why did Jay-Z ignore him all these years? Why was the truth treated like a threat instead of something sacred? And then, his mother flashed in his mind. Wanda, the woman who had told him the truth when he was just a boy, who carried that truth with her until her last breath. She had been mocked, dismissed, called a liar, but she never wavered. She always told her son the truth. And now, she was gone, never able to see this day, never able to stand in this courtroom and say, "I told you so." But she had been right. All along, she had been right. The proof was undeniable now, and while the world erupted into chaos, the courtroom itself was drowning in whispers. Journalists were typing furiously, already drafting headlines that would dominate every screen in the world. Jay-Z loses it in court. DNA confirms paternity. Mogul cornered by truth. The story had broken free from those four walls and was already out there, spiraling out of control. Outside, the noise got louder. Protesters, fans, reporters, they were all reacting to the news in real time. Some cheered for Rymir. Others shouted their support for Jay-Z, calling it a setup, a PR stunt, anything to protect the man they idolized. But the internet, it had no mercy. Every frame of Jay-Z's outburst was already a meme. Influencers were dissecting it. Podcasters were ranting. Twitter threads longer than law books were breaking down every detail. But inside that courtroom, stripped of the noise, it was deeply personal. Just two men. One processing a truth he had buried for decades. The other realizing that proving his truth didn't erase the years of pain it caused, and then it happened. Jay-Z finally lifted his head. His eyes met Rymir's across the room, and for that brief, powerful second, everything else faded away. The reporters, the cameras, the noise, it all disappeared. There was no empire, no billion-dollar brand, no music, just a father and the son he never acknowledged, staring at each other in silence. And in that silence, the truth spoke louder than any words ever could. The judge's gavel hit the block, calling the courtroom back to order. But let's be real. Order was gone the second those DNA results were read. Reporters were buzzing. Phones were lighting up, and the whispers? They were impossible to contain. Jay-Z sat there like stone, eyes fixed straight ahead, as if staring hard enough might make time reverse. But it was over. The truth was carved into stone now. No PR magic, no million-dollar lawyer, no empire could undo it. And then the judge dismissed the room. The lawyers and press scrambled toward the doors like vultures chasing fresh meat, but Jay-Z didn't move. He just sat there, still, heavy, shattered. For a man who had spent his entire career building an image of power, of control, of being untouchable, this was the crack in the armor no one thought they'd ever see. This wasn't another rap beef. This wasn't another flashy business deal. This was family. And it was breaking him apart, right there, in front of the world. Rymir sat quietly too. No cheers, no victory laps. He didn't even look relieved. He just sat with this haunted expression, like he had finally gotten the truth, but realized it didn't fix anything. And honestly, that was the cruelest part. For years he'd been labeled a liar, painted as a clout chaser, dismissed as some random guy with a story. Now, finally, a judge had confirmed everything he had said since the beginning. Jay-Z was his father, but it didn't erase the birthdays missed. It didn't erase the years of silence. It didn't erase the pain of a childhood without the man who was supposed to be there. Rymir didn't linger. He slipped out of that courtroom quietly, moving past the cameras and microphones that were begging for a comment. He wasn't there for the spotlight. He wasn't there for headlines. He was there for the truth, and now that he had it, he just wanted out. Inside, Jay finally stood, slowly. He straightened his jacket like a man trying to put the armor back on, but it didn't fit the same. His lawyers rushed to his side, whispering furiously, appeals, damage control, PR strategies. But Jay-Z wasn't hearing any of it. His mind wasn't in the courtroom anymore. His mind was on the man who had just walked out the door, the son he had never acknowledged, the boy who had grown into a man without him. And that, right there, was the cut that went deepest. Jay-Z hadn't just denied the truth. He had missed everything. The birthdays, the milestones, the ordinary days that make up a life. Rymir had grown up without him, and now he was a man. Calm, composed, dignified in a way money can't buy. That realization hit Jay-Z harder than any headline ever could. Outside, the streets were chaos. Fans and reporters shoved against barricades, shouting questions no one would answer. Cameras flashed nonstop as Jay finally walked out. Normally, Jay-Z could walk through chaos untouched, like he was floating above it. But not today. Today, he looked like a man weighed down by the one thing he couldn't control anymore: the truth. And the internet? Oh, it was on fire. Within hours, clips of Jay's courtroom breakdown were viral. Headlines screamed, "Jay-Z breaks down in court." Some people mocked him, others defended him, but everyone had an opinion. Twitter threads dissected every second of footage. Conspiracy theories ran wild. Was this a setup, a PR stunt, a distraction from something bigger? But beneath all the noise, the reality was clear. The truth was out. And it wasn't just a celebrity scandal anymore. This was bigger than Jay-Z. This was a cultural reckoning, a reminder that no amount of fame, money, or power can shield you from accountability forever, not when real lives are involved. At home, Beyoncé stayed silent. The Carters didn't release a statement, but that silence, it was deafening, because the implications weren't just personal, they were massive. Family, marriage, brand deals, legacy. Everything Jay-Z had built was now under a microscope, and not because he had a son, but because he had denied that son for so long. People saw themselves in Rymir, the ignored, the dismissed, the fatherless. And people saw themselves in Jay-Z too, the one who avoided the truth until it cornered him. That's why this story hit so hard. It wasn't just gossip, it was human. And for Rymir, the victory was bittersweet. Yes, the court had confirmed the truth, but it didn't give him time back. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't suddenly make him a son. The truth gave him proof, but it didn't give him the closure he needed. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's empire was cracking. Every brand deal, every partnership, every carefully curated piece of his image was suddenly up for debate. The man who built an untouchable legacy was now being dissected, meme by meme, headline by headline. The fallout wasn't just personal, it was professional. The myth of Jay-Z, the mogul above it all, had taken a hit no PR spin could polish. When Jay finally stepped outside that courthouse, cameras flashed like lightning, reporters shouted over each other. But Jay-Z? He didn't say a word, he just walked through the chaos, shoulders heavy, carrying the one thing he couldn't bury anymore, the truth. And the truth? It was everywhere. Online, in headlines, on talk shows, in living rooms. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a storm. And for Jay-Z, there was no hiding anymore. By the time Jay-Z made it home, the storm outside had already reached hurricane levels. Every news outlet had picked up the story. Talk shows were replaying the footage of him slamming his fists on the table. Clips were looping nonstop across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. You couldn't scroll for more than 5 seconds without seeing Jay-Z's face frozen mid-breakdown, or Rymir's calm, almost chilling stillness as the DNA results were read. But behind the memes, the headlines, the debates, there was something much deeper. For Jay-Z, this wasn't just about losing control in court. This wasn't just about a tarnished image. This was about a lifetime of choices catching up to him in the most public way possible. Now the world was left wondering, what comes next? Would Jay-Z acknowledge Rymir publicly? Would he try to build a relationship even this late in the game? Or would he retreat behind his walls, letting the silence speak louder than any apology? Because here's the cold reality. Acknowledging Rymir isn't just about fatherhood. It's about reputation. It's about image. It's about admitting that for over a decade, one of the most powerful men in music denied his own blood. And that's not an easy pill to swallow, for him or for the world. So now, the world waits. Will Jay-Z finally step up as more than a mogul, as a father, or will the silence stretch on, leaving this story to haunt his legacy forever? Because one thing is certain, this scandal isn't fading. It's not just gossip, it's a cultural moment. And the internet? Oh, it'll never forget.